Why does your son have my eyes? Noah Bennett forgot how to breathe. 5 years of careful distance, unanswered questions, and carefully constructed explanations collapsed into one sentence beneath the bright afternoon sun. Around them, the Hayes Meridian family day continued as if nothing had happened. Children chased soap bubbles across the grass, volunteers carried boxes of sandwiches between white tents, and music drifted from a small stage near the community center. Noah heard none of it clearly anymore. Alexander Hayes stood less than 6 feet away, taller and more composed than Noah remembered, dressed in a navy suit despite the casual event. Time had sharpened him. At 35, the Alpha CEO carried the quiet confidence of a man accustomed to rooms becoming attentive when he entered them. But Alexander was not looking at Noah now. He was looking at 5-year-old Eli. Eli sat at a folding table with a blue marker in one hand, carefully drawing a rocket ship on a paper bag. His dark hair refused to stay neat, and his gray-blue eyes narrowed whenever he concentrated. Noah knew that expression. He had spent 5 years pretending he did not know where it came from. Alexander looked back at him. Noah. Hearing his name in that familiar voice made the years between them feel dangerously thin. Noah tightened his grip around the strap of Eli's backpack. You are mistaken. Am I? Yes. Alexander glanced toward Eli again. Noah stepped slightly into his line of sight. The movement was instinctive, protective. Alexander noticed it immediately. How old is he? That is none of your business. I did not say it was. Alexander's voice remained calm. That somehow made everything worse. Noah had prepared himself for anger if this day ever came. He had imagined accusations, demands, impossible questions. He had never prepared for restraint. He is 5, Eli announced from behind Noah. Noah closed his eyes for half a second. Eli appeared beside him holding up the decorated bag. Look, it is for the food drive. Alexander lowered his gaze to the drawing. That is a very impressive rocket. Eli smiled. It has 3 engines because one is not enough. Alexander's expression changed. It was only a flicker, but Noah saw it. Years earlier, Alexander had once spent an entire dinner explaining why every important system needed a backup. Noah had teased him for making contingency plans for his contingency plans. Now Eli stood between them, defending almost the same idea with complete seriousness. Smart, Alexander said softly. Eli nodded. Noah says I overthink things. Alexander looked at Noah. Does he? Noah felt panic pressing against his ribs. Eli, please take your bag to Ms. Carter. I will meet you at the lemonade table. Okay. Eli ran toward the volunteers, leaving the 2 adults in a silence that suddenly felt enormous. Alexander watched until the boy reached the tent safely. Then he turned back. 5 years. Noah said nothing. You disappeared 5 years ago. Do not do this here. I am not doing anything. Alexander's voice dropped. I am asking a question. Noah knew exactly which question was coming. He had rehearsed the answer for years, first in fear, then in guilt, and eventually because repetition made a lie easier to carry. Alexander looked toward Eli one more time. Is he mine? Noah forced himself to meet the Alpha's eyes. No, Alexander did not move. Noah made himself continue. He is not your son. The words sounded far less convincing aloud than they had inside his head. Alexander studied him for several long seconds, then gave a single restrained nod. All right. That response startled Noah. That is it. You gave me an answer. And you believe me? Something almost painful crossed Alexander's face before disappearing. I said I would accept your answer. I did not say I understood it. Behind them, small footsteps approached. Eli returned carrying 2 paper cups of lemonade. He offered one to Noah, then looked curiously at Alexander. Noah reached for his son's hand. We should go. As they walked away, Eli glanced back over his shoulder. Alexander was still standing beside the table, watching them leave. Eli squeezed Noah's fingers. Who was that? Noah kept walking. Someone I knew a long time ago. Eli considered this, then looked back again. He looked sad. Noah swallowed. Sometimes grown-ups are. Eli was quiet for several steps. He has eyes like mine. Noah stopped walking. Noah did not answer Eli until they were inside their small apartment in Cambridge, nearly 40 minutes later. By then, Eli had become distracted by a missing green crayon, a bowl of apple slices, and the urgent question of whether astronauts could bring dogs to Mars. Noah welcomed every distraction. Ordinary questions were safe. Ordinary questions had answers. Can dogs go to space? Eli asked from the kitchen table. Some animals have been to space. That is not what I asked. Noah looked at him and almost smiled. I do not know if astronauts can bring pet dogs to Mars. Eli considered this serious failure of adult knowledge, then returned to his drawing. Noah stood at the counter, watching his son color the same 3-engine rocket he had shown Alexander. Their apartment was modest, 2 bedrooms above a neighborhood bookstore, with windows that rattled whenever buses passed on the street below. Noah had built their life here piece by piece. He worked as an administrative coordinator for a pediatric therapy center 6 blocks away. Eli attended kindergarten nearby. Saturday mornings meant pancakes. Tuesday evenings meant library books. Every refrigerator magnet, every mismatched coffee mug, every pencil mark showing Eli's height on the pantry door belonged to a life Noah understood. Alexander Hayes did not belong inside it. That had been the rule for 5 years. Noah's phone vibrated on the counter. He ignored it until Eli carried his drawing into the living room. Then he looked. One message. Alexander. Noah had never deleted the number. He had simply spent 5 years hoping it would never appear again. The message was brief. I will believe you, but I need to understand why you disappeared. Noah read it twice. There was no accusation. No demand about Eli. Somehow, that made the guilt worse. He locked the screen without replying. 5 years earlier, Noah had left Boston with 2 suitcases and a certainty that Alexander had already chosen the life he wanted. Noah had learned about Eli afterward, when returning felt impossible and pride made every passing week harder to undo. At first, Noah told himself he needed time. Then Eli was born, and time became fear. Alexander was not simply an alpha with money. He was the heir to a corporate family whose decisions became headlines. Noah had imagined attorneys, custody arguments, private schools chosen without him, and a powerful family deciding that a frightened young Omega was the least important person in his own child's life. So Noah stayed silent. He told himself silence was protection. 5 years later, he was no longer certain whom it had protected. Noah. Eli stood in the hallway wearing dinosaur pajamas. Yes. You forgot bath time. Noah checked the clock and realized 20 minutes had disappeared. You are right. Go get your towel. Eli started toward the bathroom, then stopped. Is the sad man your friend? Noah knew immediately whom he meant. We used to be close. Did he do something bad? The question landed harder than Noah expected. No, did you? Noah stared at his son. Eli waited with the brutal patience only a 5-year-old could manage. It is complicated. That means yes sometimes. Noah almost laughed, but the sound never came. Go get your towel. Eli disappeared down the hall. Noah's phone vibrated again. His heart jumped, but this time the message came from Eli's after-school program. Monday reminder. Hayes Meridian Group representatives would visit the center that week to review the company's new education grant. Noah read the notice slowly. Hayes Meridian had funded the program months before the charity event. This was not Alexander chasing him. It was worse in a different way. Their lives had already begun crossing before either man knew it. Noah looked toward the bathroom, where Eli was singing loudly and incorrectly about dinosaurs on the moon. Then he looked back at Alexander's unanswered message. For 5 years, Noah had believed distance could keep the past separate from his son. Now the past was funding Eli's after-school program, standing 6 feet away with the same gray-blue eyes, and asking the one question Noah had never learned how to answer. Monday afternoon arrived too quickly. Noah spent most of the day telling himself that Alexander Hayes was the chief executive officer of a company with thousands of employees and dozens of community partnerships. There was no reason for him to personally attend a routine grant visit at one after-school center in Cambridge. At 3:15, Noah walked through the center doors to pick up Eli and immediately saw Alexander speaking with the program director beside a wall covered in children's artwork. Noah stopped. Alexander noticed him but did not approach. Instead, he finished the conversation, shook the director's hand, and moved toward another staff member. The restraint was unmistakable. He was keeping his promise. Noah. Eli hurried across the room, carrying a cardboard bridge. Look what we made. Noah crouched beside him. That is impressive. It holds 10 blocks. 10. Maybe 11. But Mason put 12 on it, and everything fell down. A voice behind them said, Every bridge has a limit. Eli turned. Alexander stood several feet away, holding a visitor badge. Mr. Sadman, Eli said. Noah closed his eyes briefly. Alexander looked almost amused. I have been called worse. Eli held up the bridge. Do you know about buildings? A little. This is a bridge. Then I am already failing the interview. Eli laughed. Noah rose slowly. Alexander. Noah. Nothing else passed between them, but Eli looked from one man to the other with obvious curiosity. The program director approached and asked Alexander to inspect the new reading room. Eli immediately volunteered to show him. Noah expected Alexander to accept without hesitation. Instead, Alexander looked at Noah first. Is that all right? The question surprised him. It is fine. Eli led them toward the reading room, explaining every feature as if he had personally designed the building. Alexander listened seriously. He did not check his phone. He did not interrupt. When Eli pointed out a shelf that was too high for younger children, Alexander crouched to inspect it. How would you fix it? He asked. Eli thought for a moment. Put the books lower. Simple. Grown-ups make things complicated. Alexander glanced at Noah. They do. Noah pretended not to hear the second meaning. Near the window, Eli discovered a wooden puzzle missing one piece. He searched under the table, then automatically tapped 3 fingers against his knee while thinking. Noah's stomach tightened. Alexander had done exactly the same thing whenever he was solving a problem 5 years earlier. Alexander noticed Noah watching. Then he looked down at Eli's hand. Neither man spoke. Eli finally found the piece beneath a chair. I knew it was here. Alexander smiled. You do not like leaving problems unfinished. No, neither do I. Noah's chest tightened again. At pickup time, Eli ran to get his backpack. Alexander remained beside the doorway. I did not arrange this visit because of you, he said quietly. I know. The grant existed before Saturday. I wanted that clear. Noah nodded. Alexander looked toward Eli across the room. I meant what I said. I will not question you about him again. Noah should have felt relieved. Instead, the promise made him ashamed. Thank you. Eli returned wearing his backpack crookedly over one shoulder. Are you coming Wednesday? He asked Alexander. Why Wednesday? We test the bridges again. We get 20 blocks this time. Alexander looked at Noah before answering. Only if my work brings me here. Eli accepted that. Okay. You should come if it does. Alexander smiled. I will remember. Outside, Noah and Eli walked toward the bus stop beneath a gray Boston sky. They had gone less than a block when Eli asked, Why does Mr. Hayes look at me like he knows me? Noah nearly missed a step. He does not know you. I know. Eli adjusted his backpack. But he listens like he does. Noah looked down at his son and realized resemblance was no longer the most dangerous thing connecting Eli to Alexander. The dangerous thing was how naturally they understood each other. That night, Noah found himself remembering the last spring he had spent with Alexander, before silence became easier than asking one more question. 5 years earlier, Noah had been 24 and working for a nonprofit that coordinated neighborhood health programs across Boston. Alexander was 30, already carrying responsibilities at Hayes Meridian that seemed large enough to consume every hour he had. They had met at a fundraising dinner and spent months insisting they were too different for anything serious. Then months became a year, and Noah learned that the intimidating alpha who could silence a conference room with one look kept terrible instant coffee in his apartment and called his older sister whenever he needed advice he would never admit needing. Alexander learned that Noah hated expensive restaurants, loved used bookstores, and refused to let anyone treat being an Omega as a reason to make decisions for him. Their relationship had never been perfect, but Noah had believed it was real. That was why the final week hurt so much. Noah had spent 3 mornings staring at a positive pregnancy test hidden inside his bathroom cabinet, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. He planned to tell Alexander on Friday night. He even bought Alexander's favorite takeout and arrived early at his downtown office. Alexander was still in a board meeting, so Noah waited outside the conference room. He had almost knocked when he heard voices through the partially open door. The board wants certainty, an older man said. The marriage would settle the investors. Noah froze. Another voice mentioned the daughter of a prominent business family. Then Alexander spoke. If that is what it takes to protect the company, I understand what is expected. Noah remembered gripping the paper bag until the handles pressed into his fingers. Someone asked whether Alexander was prepared for the consequences. I know what I have to do, Alexander answered. Noah did not wait for anything else. He left the food with the receptionist and walked 6 blocks through cold rain before realizing He had forgotten his umbrella. Alexander called that night. Noah did not answer. He called again Saturday morning, then sent messages asking what was wrong. Noah replied only once, telling Alexander that whatever they had was over. Pride did the rest. Noah changed jobs within weeks and moved temporarily to his father's home outside Worcester. By the time he learned for certain that the pregnancy was progressing normally, he had already convinced himself Alexander had chosen the Hayes name, the company, and the future his family expected. Noah never told him. Sitting at his kitchen table 5 years later, Noah could still hear that conversation exactly as he had heard it then. What troubled him now was not the memory. It was everything he had not heard. His phone rested beside him, Alexander's message still unanswered. Across the apartment, Eli slept beneath a blanket covered in planets, one hand curled beneath his cheek. Noah walked quietly to the bedroom doorway and watched him. For years, Noah had told himself he had made the safest decision possible. Yet Alexander had spent 2 encounters doing the opposite of everything Noah once feared. He had not threatened. He had not demanded. He had not used his money or position. He had asked permission before speaking with Eli and accepted boundaries Noah knew must have been painful. Noah returned to the kitchen and opened Alexander's message again. His thumb hovered over the screen. He typed, "I left because I heard something I was never supposed to hear." Then he deleted it. He tried again. "You had already made your choice." He deleted that too. Finally, Noah locked the phone without replying. From the hallway came a sleepy voice. "Noah." He hurried toward Eli's room. "I am here." Eli blinked up at him. "Did Mr. Hayes come Wednesday yet?" Noah smiled despite himself. "It is still Monday." "Oh." Eli closed his eyes again. "He should see my bridge." Noah pulled the blanket higher over his shoulders. "Go back to sleep." Within minutes, Eli was quiet again. Noah remained beside the bed, thinking about a conversation from 5 years ago and a sentence he had never stayed long enough to hear finished. For the first time, he wondered whether the secret he had built their entire life around had begun with a truth, or only half of one. By Wednesday afternoon, Eli had rebuilt his bridge twice and decided 20 blocks were not enough. Noah arrived at the after-school center to find his son standing beside a table covered with wooden blocks, explaining structural improvements to 3 other children with the seriousness of an engineer presenting to a city council. Alexander was not there. Noah told himself the relief he felt had nothing to do with disappointment. "We got 32, Eli announced when he noticed him. 32 what? Blocks. The bridge held 32. That sounds like a record. Eli nodded proudly, then glanced toward the entrance. Mr. Hayes did not come. He has a company to run. I know. Eli began putting blocks into a plastic bin. I just wanted to show him. Noah crouched to help. You can be proud of something even when a particular person does not see it. Eli considered that. I am. I wanted him to be proud too. Noah stopped with a block in his hand. Before he could answer, the program director approached carrying a large cardboard box. She explained that Hayes Meridian had approved additional funding for the reading room, including lower shelving, new books, and adjustable tables for younger students. Noah remembered Eli pointing out the shelf problem on Monday. Did Alexander request this? He asked. Mr. Hayes approved the budget, but the proposal came from his community team months ago. He did add the adjustable shelving after his visit. There was no plaque bearing Alexander's name, no photographer, no public announcement. Just a practical correction because a 5-year-old had pointed out a problem. That evening, Eli helped Noah make grilled cheese sandwiches while rain tapped against the apartment windows. Halfway through dinner, Eli asked, "Do I have a dad?" Noah nearly dropped his glass. He set it down carefully. "Why are you asking?" Mason's dad helped with his science project. Sophie has 2 dads. Mrs. Carter said families can look different. Noah swallowed. She is right. But do I have one? There were dozens of answers Noah could have given. None felt fair anymore. Everyone has biological parents, he said carefully. But families are not always together. Eli looked down at his sandwich. Does mine know about me? Noah felt the question settle heavily between them. Why are you thinking about this now? Eli shrugged, but his eyes remained lowered. I was just wondering. Noah reached across the table and covered Eli's small hand with his own. You can always ask me questions, even hard ones. Especially hard ones. Eli finally looked up. If my dad found me someday, would he know I was his? Noah had spent years preparing explanations for adults. He had never prepared for this. I do not know, he said quietly. Eli thought for several seconds. I think he would. Why? Because dads should know things like that. Noah could not answer. Later, after Eli fell asleep, Noah stood in the living room looking at the framed photographs along the bookshelf. First birthday. First day of preschool. Eli holding a pumpkin almost as large as his chest. 5 years of moments Alexander had never known existed. Noah had always counted those photographs as proof that he had given Eli a good life. Tonight they looked different. They also measured everything another person had missed. His phone vibrated. A message from the after-school center thanked families for supporting Friday's school supply drive and noted that representatives from Hayes Meridian would attend. Noah set the phone down, but his attention shifted to the bottom drawer of the bookshelf. Inside was an old envelope he had carried through 3 apartments and never thrown away. Noah opened the drawer and stared at it. He did not notice the small figure standing silently in the hallway behind him. Eli had come looking for water. From where he stood, he could see Noah remove an old photograph from the envelope. In it, a younger Noah was smiling beside a man Eli recognized immediately. Mr. Hayes. Eli returned to bed without asking for water. He pulled the blanket to his chin and stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars above him, trying to understand why Noah had an old photograph with Mr. Hayes. Grown-ups, Eli had learned, often answered simple questions with complicated words. Maybe. Later. It depends. Eli preferred facts. Fact 1. Noah had known Mr. Hayes a long time ago. Fact 2. Mr. Hayes had eyes like his. Fact 3. The photograph showed Noah smiling beside Mr. Hayes in a way Eli had never seen in any other old picture. Fact 4. Noah became quiet whenever Eli asked about his dad. By morning, Eli had formed a theory. He did not share it. At breakfast, he ate cereal and watched Noah pack his lunch. Why are you staring at me? Noah asked. I am thinking. That is usually expensive. Eli smiled. Did you know Mr. Hayes when you were younger? Noah stopped closing the lunch container for half a second. Yes. Was he your friend? For a while. Eli nodded and returned to his cereal. Noah studied him. Why? Just wondering. The answer sounded suspiciously familiar, and Noah knew it. Still, he did not push. On Friday afternoon, the after-school center hosted its school supply drive. Families carried backpacks, notebooks, pencils, and boxes of crayons into the gym, while volunteers sorted donations by grade level. Noah arrived after work and immediately spotted Alexander near the registration table, speaking with the program director. Alexander greeted Noah with a polite nod and nothing more. Eli noticed him too. Mr. Hayes. Alexander turned. Eli hurried over holding a box of colored pencils. Our bridge held 32 blocks. Alexander's eyebrows rose. 32? Then I clearly missed an important engineering demonstration. I can build it again. I would like that. Alexander glanced at Noah. If that is all right. Noah nodded. It is fine. Eli led Alexander toward a table, while Noah helped sort notebooks nearby. He tried not to watch them, but every few minutes his attention drifted back. Alexander never treated Eli like a curiosity. When Eli explained his bridge, Alexander asked questions. When Eli changed his mind halfway through construction, Alexander waited. When the bridge leaned, Alexander did not fix it for him. What do you think went wrong? He asked. Eli tapped 3 fingers against his knee. Alexander unconsciously did the same. Noah looked away. Later, Eli wandered toward a display about family reading night. A poster showed children sitting with parents beneath the words, "Bring someone who helps you grow." Eli studied it longer than necessary. Alexander approached but stayed a respectful distance away. You okay? He asked. Eli nodded. Can I ask you something? You can ask. Do you have kids? Alexander became still. No, do you want them? Noah, standing several feet away, froze with a stack of notebooks in his hands. Alexander considered the question seriously. I always thought I might someday. Would you be good at it? A faint smile crossed Alexander's face. I would probably make mistakes. Noah makes mistakes. I am sure he does. He burns pancakes sometimes. Alexander looked toward Noah, and for one brief moment the old warmth in his expression returned. That sounds serious. Eli laughed. Then he looked directly into Alexander's gray-blue eyes. Do you know who my dad is? Alexander's smile disappeared. He did not look at Noah this time. No, he said quietly. I do not. Eli nodded, as if recording another fact. Noah finally walked over. Eli, Help me with the backpacks. Okay. Eli ran toward the donation table. Alexander remained beside the poster. I did not bring it up, he said. I know. Noah watched Eli across the gym. He has started asking questions. Alexander's voice softened. Maybe he deserves answers. Noah looked at him sharply, but there was no accusation in Alexander's face. Only sadness. That evening, Eli waited until Noah was washing dishes, then quietly opened the bottom bookshelf drawer. The photograph was still inside its envelope. Eli studied the younger versions of Noah and Alexander, then carried the picture to his bedroom. He placed it beside a recent photograph from the charity day that his teacher had printed for every child. Alexander happened to be visible in the background. Eli compared the faces carefully. The eyes, the serious expression, even the way one eyebrow lifted slightly higher than the other. Eli did not understand everything adults meant by biological parents, but he understood patterns. He returned the old photograph exactly where he had found it. Then he climbed into bed with a secret of his own. Noah thought he was protecting Eli from the truth. He did not know that Eli had already begun to find it. The following Thursday, Eli's school held family reading night, and Noah had promised for weeks that he would arrive before the first story began. At 5:20, he was still standing inside the pediatric therapy center while a scheduling problem kept two families waiting for appointments. Noah checked the clock again and called Eli's teacher. I am leaving as soon as I can. Please tell him I am coming. He knows, Mrs. Carter assured him. He is helping arrange the books. Noah ended the call with guilt pressing heavily against his chest. Across Cambridge, Eli sat on a small chair in the school library, watching other families arrive. He told himself Noah would come. Noah always came. Near the entrance, representatives from several community sponsors were speaking with teachers, and among them was Alexander. Hayes Meridian had donated new books through the same education program supporting Eli's after-school center. Alexander noticed Eli sitting alone and approached carefully. Where's Noah? Work problem. Eli tried to sound unconcerned. He is coming. I am sure he is. Alexander glanced at the empty chair beside him. Would you like company until then? Eli nodded. Alexander sat beside him, but left enough space that Eli never felt crowded. When the reading activity began, Mrs. Carter handed each child a book to share with the adult beside them. Eli received a story about a boy building a treehouse. Alexander opened to the first page. Do you want to read? Or should I? I can read. Eli began slowly, stopping at the longer words. Alexander never supplied an answer too quickly. He waited until Eli tried, then helped only when asked. Halfway through, Eli looked up. You do that like Noah. Do what? Wait. Alexander smiled faintly. Maybe waiting is useful sometimes. Eli studied him with the same serious expression he used when testing bridges. The photograph hidden in Noah's drawer had remained in his thoughts all week. Did you know Noah before I was born? Alexander became very still. Yes. Did you like him? Alexander looked toward the library doors before answering. Very much. Eli nodded, another piece settling into place. At 6:10, Noah hurried through the school entrance, apologizing to a teacher as he searched the crowded library. He spotted Eli immediately. His son was standing beside Alexander near a table of books, proudly holding a certificate for finishing the evening's reading challenge. Relief washed across Noah's face. Eli. Eli turned and smiled. Noah, you came. Of course I came. Noah crossed the room and crouched in front of him. I am sorry I was late. It is okay. Mr. Hayes stayed with me. Noah looked up at Alexander. Thank you. He did all the work, Alexander said. I mostly listened. Eli held out the certificate. I read the whole treehouse book. Noah smiled. I knew you could. Mrs. Carter called Eli's name from across the library, asking him to bring his certificate for the class photograph. Eli started toward her, then noticed Alexander picking up the book they had read. Without hesitation, Eli turned back. Dad, Noah is here. You can come for the picture too. Everything around them seemed to disappear. Alexander froze with the book in his hand. Noah's smile vanished. Eli looked between them, suddenly aware that neither adult was moving. Alexander did not correct him. He did not reach for Eli or claim the word. Instead, his eyes went directly to Noah. The question in them was unmistakable. Noah felt 5 years of silence arrive in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Eli, he said carefully, why did you call him that? Eli looked confused by the question. Because I figured it out. Noah could barely speak. Figured out what? Eli lowered his voice as though explaining something obvious. The picture in the drawer. You knew him before I was born. We have the same eyes. We think the same way. And every time I ask about my dad, you look sad like you did when you saw him. Alexander's face lost all color. What picture? He asked quietly. Eli looked at Noah. The old one. Noah stood slowly. Alexander was still staring at him, but the uncertainty in his expression had changed into something deeper. Noah, Alexander said. He did not need to finish. Eli had already done what neither adult had been brave enough to do. He had taken 5 years of carefully separated facts and turned them into one unavoidable truth. Noah asked Mrs. Carter to keep Eli with the class for the photograph, while he and Alexander stepped into the quiet hallway outside the library. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Alexander stood near a row of student lockers, his expression controlled, but Noah could see the questions behind it. Tell me, Alexander finally said. Noah looked through the library doors at Eli smiling beside his classmates. There was no lie left that could protect anyone. Eli is your son. Alexander closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, his voice remained quiet. You knew? Yes. For how long? Since before he was born. Alexander looked away. 5 years. Noah swallowed. I found out after I left you. And you never thought I deserved to know? I thought you had already chosen another life. Alexander turned back. What are you talking about? Noah told him about the Friday evening 5 years earlier, the conference room, the board, the proposed marriage, and the words he had heard Alexander say. Alexander listened without interrupting. When Noah finished, disbelief crossed his face. You left before the meeting ended. I had heard enough. No, Noah. You heard half of it. Noah went still. Alexander drew a slow breath. The board wanted me to marry Evelyn Mercer because her family controlled shares they believed could stabilize the company. I told them I understood what they expected. Then I told them I would not do it. Noah stared at him. You said you knew what you had to do. I did. I had to refuse them. Alexander's voice tightened for the first time. I told the board I would step away from the chief executive position before I let them decide whom I married. The hallway seemed suddenly too quiet. Noah remembered the rain, the takeout bag, and how quickly he had walked away. I never heard that. Because you were gone. Alexander looked toward the library. I called you that night. I went to your apartment the next morning. Your landlord said you had already started moving out. I contacted your office later, but you had resigned. Your old number eventually stopped working. Noah felt the weight of every year between them. I thought you would come after me if you really wanted me. I did. Alexander's answer was immediate. I just did not know where you went. Noah looked down. When I learned about Eli, I was scared. I imagined what your family could do. I thought they would decide I was not good enough to raise a Hayes heir. So you decided for me instead. Noah flinched at the truth in those words. Yes. Alexander was silent. Then he asked, Did you ever plan to tell me? Noah could not offer another convenient answer. At first, yes. Then every month made it harder. After Eli was born, I told myself keeping our life quiet was protecting him. From me. From everything around you. Alexander looked through the glass doors again. Eli was now showing his certificate to another child. The pain on Alexander's face was restrained, but unmistakable. I missed his first word. Noah said nothing. His first day of school. His birthdays. Every ordinary morning when he woke up and needed someone. Alexander swallowed. I cannot get those years back. I know. I am angry, Noah. You have every right to be. Alexander finally looked at him. But I am not going to turn that anger into something Eli has to carry. Noah's eyes burned. What happens now? Now we stop lying to him. Alexander paused. After that, we take one step at a time. You are not going to demand anything? I want to know my son. I want the chance I should have had from the beginning. His voice softened. But Eli is a child, not something either of us gets to claim. The library door opened. Eli stepped into the hallway holding his certificate. He looked nervously between them. Are you mad? Alexander immediately crouched so they were at eye level. Not at you. Was I right? Alexander glanced at Noah. Noah nodded, tears finally gathering in his eyes. Yes, buddy, Noah said. You were right. Eli looked at Alexander again, suddenly less certain than he had been minutes earlier. So you really are my dad? Alexander's expression softened. I am your biological father. Eli thought carefully. Is that the same thing? Alexander looked at the little boy he had lost 5 years with and answered with a humility Noah had never expected from the powerful alpha he once knew. Not automatically, he said. Being your dad is something I still need to learn how to deserve. Alexander did not move into Noah's apartment, rearrange Eli's schedule, or arrive the next morning with expensive gifts. Instead, he began with Saturday breakfast at a small diner 3 blocks from their home. Eli ordered blueberry pancakes and asked Alexander 17 questions before the coffee arrived. What is your favorite planet? Saturn. Can you swim? Yes. Do you know how to make pancakes? Alexander considered that one. Technically. Noah raised an eyebrow. That sounds concerning. I can follow instructions. Eli laughed. Noah burns them sometimes. I have heard. Noah looked at Alexander. You two have known each other officially for 3 days, and I am already being criticized. It was the first morning that felt almost normal. The weeks that followed were not perfect, but they were honest. Alexander attended Eli's Saturday activities when invited. He learned which dinosaur Eli insisted was the best, and discovered that bedtime stories required different voices for every character. When business meetings conflicted with plans, he told Eli in advance instead of making promises he could not keep. Noah watched all of it carefully. Alexander never introduced himself as Eli's father without letting Eli decide what felt comfortable. He never used his position at Hayes Meridian to change Noah's routines. Most importantly, he never treated 5 lost years as a debt a 5-year-old boy had to repay. One afternoon, Alexander arrived at the after-school center carrying nothing but his coat and an umbrella. Eli ran toward him with a cardboard structure in both hands. 48 blocks. Alexander stared at the bridge. You finally broke 32. By 16. I respect the precision. Eli beamed. Noah stood near the doorway and felt something inside him loosen. Months earlier, he would have seen Alexander standing beside Eli and imagined everything he might lose. Now he saw what Eli was gaining. Trust did not return all at once between Noah and Alexander. They talked about the past in small pieces. Noah apologized without asking Alexander to pretend the lost years did not matter. Alexander admitted that anger and grief sometimes arrived unexpectedly, but he never used either to punish Noah. They agreed that whatever happened between them as adults would move slowly. Eli deserved stability more than either of them needed a perfect ending. Several months later, family reading night returned for the spring semester. Noah arrived early this time. He saved 3 seats in the school library without thinking about it until Alexander appeared at the doorway. Alexander noticed the chairs and stopped. Noah smiled faintly. You are late. Alexander checked his watch. By 90 seconds. Eli has been counting. Of course he has. Eli hurried over carrying a book about space exploration. You both came. We said we would, Noah replied. They sat together, Eli between them. Halfway through the book, Eli struggled with a long word. Alexander waited. Noah waited too. Eli sounded it out, smiled when he got it right, and continued reading. Afterward, families gathered outside beneath strings of lights for photographs. Eli reached for Noah's hand, then Alexander's. Alexander hesitated before taking it, the same careful pause he still gave whenever he entered a new part of Eli's life. Eli looked up at him. You know you do not have to keep waiting every time. Alexander smiled. I told you I wanted to earn being your dad. Eli considered this. I think you already did. Alexander's expression changed, and for a moment he could not answer. Noah looked away toward the school windows, giving him the privacy of that emotion. Then Eli tugged both their hands. Come on, Dad. Noah. They are taking the picture. Alexander followed. Noah did too. No one promised that every misunderstanding had disappeared or that the future would always be easy. They simply stood together beneath the warm lights while Eli smiled between them. 5 years earlier, fear had convinced Noah that protecting his son meant closing a door before anyone else could enter. Now he understood something different. Family was not created by a secret, a last name, or even biology alone. It was built through ordinary mornings, promises kept, questions answered honestly, and the decision to keep showing up. When the camera flashed, Eli was holding both their hands, and this time nobody was missing from the picture.